the girl who wanted to commit the perfect crime. In the city of Busan, South Korea's second-largest city, lived a 20-year-old woman named Jung Yoo-Jung. On the surface, she was quiet and unremarkable, but at night, she consumed true crime documentaries, articles, and news obsessively, and at some point, her fascination crossed into something darker. She didn't just want to watch crime stories, she wanted to be one. In May 2023, Yoo-Jung began planning what she believed would be the perfect crime. She checked out library books on how to hide a body and spent 3 months studying forensic science and criminal investigations online. She had no criminal record and knew no one outside the law. On paper, she was an ordinary citizen. Her plan? Find a complete stranger with no connection to her whatsoever. She turned to a popular tutoring app. South Korean youth face enormous academic pressure, making these platforms extremely common. Posing as the mother of a student who needed English lessons, she contacted over 50 tutors in Busan over several days. She eventually settled on a young woman in her 20s, we'll call her Kay, who lived alone and taught students from her apartment. By all accounts, Kay was warm, bright, and genuinely cared about every one of her students. When Yoo-Jung asked whether Kay lived alone, Kay likely thought nothing of it. Perhaps the future student was simply shy and didn't want anyone else listening in during lessons. Kay confirmed she lived alone and agreed to meet 2 days later for an introductory session. On May 26, 2023, at around 4 p.m., Yoo-Jung was caught on CCTV walking to Kay's apartment. She had ordered a school uniform online and even cut her hair shorter to pass more convincingly as a teenage student. She arrived at 5:34 p.m. and was warmly welcomed at the door. Under the pretense of needing the bathroom, she walked through the apartment confirming Kay was truly alone, then pulled a kitchen knife she had hidden in her uniform and attacked Kay in the main room. She stabbed her over 100 times, focusing on the neck and chest. The wounds on Kay's palms showed she had tried to defend herself, but it wasn't enough. About an hour later, Yoo-Jung left the apartment wearing Kay's clothes, having taken on her victim's identity. She walked to nearby supermarkets, captured on CCTV, and purchased garbage bags, cleaning supplies, and razor blades. She returned to the apartment and spent the next 6 hours methodically cleaning the scene and dismembering the body. She made 3 trips back and forth between Kay's apartment and her own home, walking calmly each time as if nothing had happened. She also took Kay's phone, ID, and wallet. Around midnight, she left the apartment for the last time, carrying a heavy suitcase. She hailed a taxi to Yangsan, a city about 20 kilometers north of Busan, loading the suitcase into the trunk herself and refusing the driver's help. She didn't speak or make eye contact during the ride. When they passed a remote area near a river, she asked the driver to stop, paid, grabbed the suitcase, and disappeared into the woods without a word. Something felt off to the driver. Instead of leaving, he circled the area. About 15 to 20 minutes later, he saw Yoo-Jung emerge from the bushes, still carrying the suitcase, but now noticeably lighter, as if she had left something behind. She hailed him again and asked to be taken home. The driver later said he didn't realize it was the same passenger at first. Once home, he followed his instincts and called the police at around 3 a.m., giving them the address where he had dropped her off. Detectives arrived and questioned Yoo-Jung about red stains in the suitcase. She first claimed she was menstruating. When pressed, she changed her story entirely, claiming she had just given birth and was trying to dispose of the baby, apparently believing this would sound less serious. An ultrasound quickly disproved that too. Meanwhile, other officers searched the area near the river and found human remains in the tall grass. At the police station, rather than asking for a lawyer, Yoo-Jung invented yet another story. That she had arrived at Kay's apartment for her lesson, found the door unlocked, walked in, and discovered Kay's body on the floor. A mysterious man was still inside, she said. He locked the door and threatened her, telling her to help dispose of the body or he would hurt her. Investigators calmly pointed out that none of this made any sense. She then changed her story again, admitting she had posed as a student because she felt embarrassed about an adult looking for a tutor. She claimed that shortly after arriving, they got into a heated argument over the lesson plan, and she killed Kay in self-defense. Investigators contacted Yoo-Jung's grandfather, her only family and guardian, and asked him to speak with her alone. He broke down in tears and begged her to simply tell the truth. Whether out of love for him or the realization that it was all over, she finally did. She explained that she had a deep passion for everything related to true crime. Films, shows, books, news articles. She said she was simply curious about what it would feel like to be involved. To satisfy that curiosity, she had taken the life of someone who had never harmed anyone. She said all of this without emotion. Even the most experienced investigators in the room were taken aback. During the investigation, police contacted all 50-plus tutors Yoo-Jung had reached out to. Every single one was a woman in her 20s. Every single one had been asked whether she lived alone. One tutor had nearly accepted Yoo-Jung as a student but declined at the last minute because her apartment was too small. All of them now live with the same chilling thought, it could have been me. Investigators also discovered that Yoo-Jung had been watching a Korean psychological thriller called Helpless, about a woman who kills and then assumes her victim's identity, at least once a day based on her browser history. The parallels to her own actions were hard to ignore, but analysts were careful to note that media doesn't make people into killers. Yoo-Jung likely didn't become violent because of a film. Rather, the film may have given shape to something that was already there. Looking at her life before the crime, a picture emerged. She had no friends, no job, no social life, nothing except her grandfather. In school, she had seemed relatively normal, but somewhere along the way she had withdrawn completely, barely interacting with anyone online or in person. Psychologists suggested her motive wasn't purely curiosity. It was also envy. Kay had an apartment, a career, a second language, friends, everything Yoo-Jung didn't. In her mind, if she was already invisible, disappearing into someone else's life might have felt almost natural. Before trial, Yoo-Jung was assessed using the PCLR psychopathy checklist, a 20-question test scored out of 40. In South Korea, anyone scoring above 25 is considered to meet the clinical threshold for psychopathy. Yoo-Jung scored 28. At trial, she asked for leniency, claiming she had been suffering from a mental illness at the time of the crime. Prosecutors rejected this, pointing to the months of planning and the methodical cover-up, and demanded the death penalty. On November 24, 2023, she was sentenced to life in prison. The taxi driver who called police never gave interviews, refused awards, and asked not to be named publicly, reportedly out of fear that Yoo-Jung might one day be released early, or that someone inspired by her might come after him. By all accounts, Yoo-Jung is doing well in prison. She eats, sleeps, and seems to enjoy the isolation. She shows no signs of remorse.